Welcome to Grade 10 CBSE Chemistry class. I am Sudhi here. Today we are going to discuss about chapter number 1, chemical reactions and equations. As we all studied about chemical reactions and equations, we all know that what is meant by a chemical reaction and what is meant by a chemical equation. A chemical equation, you all write a chemical equation in different forms like I will just show an example like that. 2H2 plus O2 gives H2. This is a simple form of chemical reaction such that the hydrogen and oxygen combined to form water. So we want to discuss chemical equation. In this chapter, we want to discuss what is meant by a chemical reaction, what are the examples of chemical reaction, what is meant by chemical equation, what is meant by balanced chemical equation, then types of chemical reaction including combination reaction, decomposition reaction, then exothermic reaction. What is mean by, we want to know that what is mean by endothermic reaction. So these are the main content in the chapters. So from this content, it is clear that we want to start with chemical reactions. From chemical reactions, we go to chemical equations. Then we have to go to how to write a balanced chemical equation. Then we want to know that what are the types of chemical reactions. These all are the main topics including in this chapter. So first we want to go to the chemical reaction. So what is mean by a chemical reaction? A chemical reaction is a process in which the initial substance loses its characteristics and forms a new substance. A chemical reaction is a process in which the initial substance loses its characteristics to form a new substance. Which means that in the case of a chemical reaction, the nature and identity of the original substances completely lost and a new substance is formed. In the case of a chemical reaction, the nature and identity, that simply means the characteristics. Its characteristics means nature and identity. Its nature and identity. So in the case of a chemical reaction, the nature and identity of a substance completely changes and forms a new substance. So a chemical reaction is a process in which the initial substance means the original substance. For example, if a chemical reaction shows A plus B gives C, this is a chemical reaction. This is a chemical reaction. So the characteristics of A and B completely changes and forms a new substance called C. So this is a general format of a chemical reaction. A plus B gives C. The substances which are taking part in chemical reactions is called reactants. The substances which are taking part in chemical reaction is called reactants. That simply means that A plus B gives C, which means that A and B are the reactants here. A and B are the reactants here. So A and B taking part in the chemical reaction and to form a new substance called C. The characteristics of C, that means the nature and identity of C is completely different from the nature and identity of A and B. So A and B forms C. So A and B are the reactants in the chemical reaction. A and B are the reactants in the chemical reaction. And the new substance formed is called product. And the new substance formed is called product. That's we say the substances which are taking part in chemical reaction is called reactants. What are the reactants here? A and B are the reactants here. And the substances which are formed after chemical reaction is called product. After chemical reaction, there is a new substance is formed and that new substance is called product. Here C is the product. Now we want to discuss some examples regarding chemical reaction. So simply the first example regarding, we will discuss some small examples such that hydrogen and oxygen combined to form water. It's an example of a chemical reaction. That is hydrogen and oxygen combined to form combined to form water. Hydrogen and oxygen combined to form water. That means that hydrogen plus oxygen gives water. So this is an example of a chemical reaction such that hydrogen and oxygen combined to form water. Hydrogen plus oxygen gives water. This is an example of chemical reaction. Here hydrogen and oxygen are the reactants and water is the product. The